And the last one is a greenway connector. If you look at the roundabout, I think it kind of tells it's McPhee Road. I always look at this and get turned around, but it's right by Bridgemore and actually across from Bridgemore, yeah, Bridgemore Future Unit. So the orange trail indicates where we would connect, and the orange box would be the bridge that would be located there. I put the design in red because I believe that we are contracted for design work. We're contracted for design work for this project, and for the material cost and the right-of-way acquisition, installation, et cetera. We would need to program for 2012 $100,000.
We're actually given easements.
Last item that's going to be in the CIP probably, I would think every year, whether it's a zero or funded, would be the land acquisition fund. We have nothing on the radar right now. There's been talk about properties. The board has in the past adopted a land acquisition priority list, but I think that kind of is pushed aside now that we have a formal strategic plan in place, which will kind of dictate how that plays out. So we're looking to fund for this year and in subsequent years $500,000 for land acquisition.
So that keeps accumulating?
Yes, ma'am, to bank it. Kind of gives you an overview of this slide here of the cost. So total for engineering projects for the next fiscal year will be $1,903,200. And the total cost for park projects for next year would be $765,000. And that would include a transfer from the general fund of $1,055,000 and the outside funding sources, grants, other earmark funds, $810,320.
Islands?
They're, what we have, yeah, they're $25,000 of the total cost. I mean, there's a,
cost.
let me see if it's on this last one. So if you look at this one here, this is out of last year's budget, I think. I'm sorry, there's projects on there from last year that need to be taken off, but this is the proposed budget for next year.
Come back, one question on the Grimsby Chapel Island thing. Why is that a capital improvement? Why isn't it a maintenance item?
I don't know the philosophy behind where it would go. To me, it would be more of a capital project, I think, because of the cost. And I mean, there's different budgeting philosophies behind that. I think, you know, when you look at fund balance and percentage of your fund balance and the way that money is moved around in the approval process, I think it's better served in the CIP. But I don't think it matters either way. Capital investment. And this is the capital investment program. But in summary, I mean, these are the projects that we're proposing for approval by the board. We're seeking, of course, your recommendation and discussion on these projects, and are open to any questions, changes, modifications. Anything else you'd like to see on there as an alternate?
I have one of those. A couple of years ago, the Planning Commission, and I think somebody did this with other groups as well, we kind of brainstormed ideas we'd like to see, put them up on the wall, and we all went around and rated projects that we'd like to see. And one of them that got very high marks from everybody, I believe, was the walking trail in front of the golf course. Is that still being considered, and when, if possible?
I believe that's been removed from this year's funding. I don't think it's being removed as a project. It's for 2013. It wasn't with all the other items that were on there. It wasn't feasible to start that project this year.
And we've kind of completed we'll kind of set aside each year for sidewalks and what have you. Well, we carried that there before, but when we first started that was get the school zones first and then move from there, but yeah.
Sorry about that, but the people at home can't hear you.
What about the cost, what is the cost of that approximately?
What we're looking at right now, including the design, right-of-way, and the construction, is in the neighborhood of about $1 million. That's well above what we normally budget for line items for sidewalks and greenway connections, that sort of thing. We are showing greenway connections budgeted at $100,000 per year for the next several years, but this is large enough that it needs to be its own project. And we have obtained STP funding for it, which kind of slows the process down a good bit.
That's why it's moved.
But if it pays for 80% of it, I'll take a slower project.
I will too.
The fact is, it's going to have an impact along the Kingston Pike and along the Willow Creek Golf Course. We're going to have to be very careful in how that's designed.
That's one of the reasons it kind of was moved to 2013, because at first you said 20, I think, around hoping 2012, but with this 80%, then that's why it's slowed it down.
That's part of the cause. I mean, we received a draft of the contract between TDOT and the town back last year, and we had some recommendations on it. We wanted some revisions, and we sent that back. We haven't received that back yet. But the fact is that given the amount of cost involved, even with just our 20%, it's something that we feel like we will be better off postponing that to the 2013 fiscal year.
I think my concern, and I hate to beat these islands to death, but I mean, I just sort of feel misled. The islands were sort of put in before me, but it was more about speed, let's slow it down. I never once heard, in the early stages, I do think they're pretty, and I like the whole idea of the poles, but it just seems to me that money, how could we not use that money to start this community center feasibility study? I mean, how does this connect in? I mean, this sort of, that's an option. What does this really mean here as far as the feasibility study? That's sort of an option if something else doesn't make it, or?
Well, I mean, actually, the feasibility study, yeah, I mean, at this point, for the study itself would be an option. For land acquisition, actually funding the community center, you might as well replace the whole CIP with that.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, we're still in the planning stages of this. If this is one of the items that this body wants to recommend the board look at, that's absolutely your decision. As far as the islands, I don't know. I'm not sure what your question is with that.
Well, I guess I never understood. I mean, you know, when people are driving through them and plowing out the plants, of course that has to be replaced, I guess. But I guess I never understood that. Well, that too. But I guess I never understood, or it was never clear to me that there was going to be, you know, a certain dollar amount associated. And you're saying you can't really say right now if it's going to be every year. Right now, we've just got it planned for the next year, and from then on, we just don't really know.
Every year. Maintenance will be, you're gonna have to maintain
Well, it's
them
not
every
listed for
year.
2013 though, right?
Well, there's,
we're not
you
doing
have, you have an
2013.
operating maintenance cost. for
Right.
the Department of Public Works that would have to go out and maintain the islands, but this would be material cost.
Okay, and then we're also, under the Watt Road plan, the extension, there's at least one island there, is that still true?
Remember when we were talking about the potential grocery store that was going to be located on the west side of Watt Road across from the Icearium?
Yes.
They have an entrance near their south property line, and then it's a 3-lane cross-section going up to Steeplechase Road, and if you have a 3-lane cross-section and you don't have any reason for a turn lane, you're going to have problems with people using them and having that potential head-on conflict that Daryl always talks about, and that you don't hear Daryl as much because you guys haven't been around during the heavy development period, but you hear me say it, where you have that potential head-on. And the purpose of the island is twofold, is it creates a pedestrian refuge at crossings, but it also creates, that eliminates that potential head-on conflict. And also, if you remember, the Hanover Court R4 development is located south of the Icearium, and so that will kind of serve as a residentializing the street. There's a variety of reasons why there's a landscape island there, but it's traffic safety, pedestrian refuge for crossing, and residentializing, for lack of a better word, that residential area from kind of the commercial area that's in there.
Basically, for the islands, once you get those plants with the pretty little purple flowers in, they will come back year after year, and they won't have to be replaced.
What is that? That is that verbena? It is. It will not, it depends on the weather, for one thing, like the cold seasons. Because I have it and mine doesn't come back every, I love it, it's pretty, and it's supposed to, but it doesn't always.
But it was picked because it has the potential to do that, is that?
Supposed to. But it
Mark
depends
says that's a
on the-
perennial.
Right, it is a perennial, but it depends on the weather. If you have a good winter, yes, cold weather, it's fickle.
Sort of like the crepe myrtles,
Yes.
4 years ago at Easter, when we had the snow and the deep freeze, crepe myrtles did not
Dogwoods.
survive very well around these parts. So you always have that risk with any kind of.
But again, there's still a possibility that they will replace a lot of this that was messed up, right? Who Mark or whoever, Gary or whoever.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
like,
I can answer whatever
you're still in
questions you guys have
negotiation
about
on
this.
that.
Who's gonna replace it?
I mean, like the people that put that in, a lot of the things that had died,
Are they done? They're done.
they're done. So,
All right, I got a question.
okay.
Have we really sunk to the point where this commission is going to deal with which choice of plants and all that?
Oh, no, I'm not saying anything about that, but somebody said something about the verbena, it will come back every year, and I just said, not necessarily, that particular one, but it's beautiful.
But it's more
Rhetorical question.
It's more of a maintenance issue that will not be as much money in the long run,
I
hopefully.
think that's the goal.
Right.
All I know is what's out there today is not acceptable, and I think we need to dedicate some time and funding to get it to where it is acceptable.
More questions?
Watt Road, and I'm gonna.
I was just asking about where the island would be in that area.